Mr. Prime Minister, on behalf of the students, the faculty members, the staff, we welcome you to these hallowed walls of our great institute.
Thank you for the warm welcome, and I want to use the maximum amount of time today for your questions and my answers. But can I just first of all say how pleased I am to be here in Calcutta. It's a real privilege for me to come. The reason I'm here is I'm passionate about the relationship between Britain and India. I've been Prime Minister for 3.5 years, and I've visited India now 3 times. I've visited India more times than any other country, apart from Belgium, where of course I have to go for the European Union meetings, but my passion is about this relationship. Why? Well, I think we have a lot in common. Obviously in Calcutta here we think about some of the ties of the past and the ties of language, the ties of culture, but I think mostly of the future. We're 2 democracies. You are the largest in the world, we're one of the oldest in the world, and we're both proud of our democracy. We both face huge challenges from terrorism and from extremism, and we must meet those challenges by working together. We're both countries that want to find our way successfully in this modern, globalized economy. Obviously, our economies are at different stages of development, but we have some things in common. Neither of our countries has masses of natural resources. We have to make the best of what we can because of our brains, our talent, and our people. So I hope we can work together and be partners of choice. And I see that when I look at the British-India relationship. British business investing massively in India, and Indian business investing hugely in Britain. You now invest more in Britain than in all of the other European Union countries put together. One of Britain's greatest economic success stories right now is Jaguar Land Rover, based on some great British design and manufacturing, but Indian capital and some brilliant Indian strategic thinking and management. So I'm passionate about this relationship, I'm passionate about what it holds for the future. And I'm particularly pleased about being here in Calcutta. It seems to me I'm in the right place, at the right time, and with the right people. The right place because this institute is one of the best in the world. It's going to be training some of the great minds of the future, and it's great to have that opportunity. The right time, this is a good time, not only because the little master is about to go into bat in India for his final test, and it's good to celebrate that. And I'm with the right people. I'm with the right people because you represent so much of what India needs for her future in terms of the talent, the brains and the brilliance that is going to build this country for the future. And Calcutta has produced some great and brilliant brains in the past. We're talking now of the Higgs boson particle, that is because of the physics of Bose. We talk, I'm sure we're going to talk in a minute about the importance of how politics and economics need to go together, something that Amartya Sen taught us perhaps more than anybody else. So you have the physics, you have the poetry, you have a huge amount of talent nascent in this great city. So with that, thank you for the warm welcome. Let's go straight to the questions. Let's go and hopefully some short and punchy answers as well. Please put your hand in the air, there'll be a roving microphone, and ask any question you like. Who wants to go first?
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. As we all know, Kolkata had been a major hub for British trade in the past. And after a long time, we see the British Prime Minister visit this city. How do you think Kolkata can play a significant role in improving Indo-UK trade relations?
Thank you. Well, I'm very glad to be the first. I think John Major, who was a Conservative Prime Minister, he came to Calcutta. I'm sorry there's been a long gap, but now there's a Conservative back in Downing Street. We're getting back doing things properly again. I think there's so much opportunity in India, and politicians often visit Mumbai and Delhi and then go home. And I think it's important to recognise how many opportunities that there are. I think I'm about to go and meet your Chief Minister. I'm very interested by my first meeting with her. I think there are big opportunities. Your city is expanding and there's a huge need for infrastructure and for city and town planning, something that Britain has some expertise in. Clearly, there's an enormous amount of work going on, thinking about how to clean up rivers and waterways. That's something we had to do in the UK with the Thames and with others. I think there's these links potentially between our universities. You have a great tradition of university education and institutes like this. We're very proud, not just of our Oxford and our Cambridges, but also other universities. Many of them are looking to start up and partner with Indian universities. And one of my pleas today is this, that I think we benefit from openness. I think it's always difficult for governments to get rid of protectionist barriers, to open up economies, to scrap tariffs, because it presents political challenges at home. But it's in our interest to do that. I gave you the examples of where we've opened up the Indian capital and we're benefiting. And I hope India will continue to open up so that it will be easier to invest in infrastructure, in universities, in insurance, all those sorts of areas, many of which are championed here in Calcutta. So we need that steady opening up in order to continue the work. But the commitment is definitely there. The British are very enthusiastic about this. Next question.
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. My question is, considering the fact that you are ruling over the first hung parliament in British history since the Second World War, has that impeded your policy making? And how has the experience been of a coalition government, say in reference to the referendum on EU membership, military action against Syria? And also, do you feel this will be a sustained trend in British politics?
Right. Very good question. I gather you have some experience of coalition governments in India as well. So, we haven't had. The last coalition in Britain was Winston Churchill in the Second World War, had a coalition government throughout the war, that it was included Conservative and Labour. So we've had very little experience of coalition. We have an electoral system that tends to deliver quite decisive results. But I was faced in 2010 with a hung parliament, and I thought the right thing to do was have a coalition rather than a minority government. Partly because of the crisis. We were having to take radical steps to get public spending down, get the deficit down, take long-term decisions. And a coalition government gave me a majority and the ability to do that. So we've made coalition government work. It's been quite a radical government. We've reformed welfare, we've reformed education, we've reformed the funding of higher education, for instance. We've taken some big long-term steps. But it is sometimes frustrating. There are areas where I'd like to go further and faster, where I think I could turn things around more quickly for the British economy. But in politics, the first duty of the politician is to serve the nation. And if you're serving the nation, when you have a hung parliament, the best thing to do, if you've got real crisis in your country, is to think, how do we get together and make the right long-term decisions? Is this going to become a long-term trend? Well, I hope not. I'm going to be fighting the next election in 2015, calling for a Conservative-owned government, wanting to have a majority. Saying to people, you see what we've achieved in coalition, you know what our values are about helping hard-working people get on and make the most of their lives. Now let us do this unencumbered by coalition. But in the end, the public will decide, and it will be for them to decide, and then for the politicians to respond. More questions.
How do you realistically assess the chances to get back competencies from the European level to the British level before the referendum? And do you think that the whole Tempora scandal did hurt you, like did hurt the...
Okay. Just to give the background, Britain is a member of the European Union, which is the club of countries now stretching right across Europe, as far east as Lithuania and Poland, a club of 28 countries. And there's a big debate going on in Britain at the moment about, is membership in our interests and how should we change this organisation? And my contention, which you referred to, is that we should try to bring some powers back from Brussels to Britain. One of the reasons I say this is that the European Union now includes two lots of countries. And this will be very interesting to the economists amongst you. One lot of countries has a single currency. They have the euro as their currency. And if you have a single currency, it drives you towards further integration. You have to look at standing behind each other's debts, making sure you regulate your banks in the same way, having more fiscal transfers between countries that are doing well and countries that are doing badly. A single currency drives integration. Britain is not in the single currency. We're not going to join the single currency. We have our own currency, the pound. As one of the top 10 economies in the world, we can sustain having our own currency. So in my view, what we should be trying to do is make sure that Europe can include both countries like us, which would like a lighter touch system, less regulation, greater flexibility, but at the same time accommodate these Eurozone countries who clearly need tighter collaboration. That's the political challenge. My view is we can reform Europe in that way. I'm confident we'll get a good outcome. And then I will hold a referendum, if I'm Prime Minister, in 2017, before the end of 2017, to say to the British people, right, we've made some changes, we've got some powers back, the thing is more flexible, it works better. Do you want to stay in it, or do you want to leave it? Because in the end, you can't hold countries in organisations against their political will. You need to operate on the basis of consent. And I want to get consent for a new sort of Europe, which I think it would be in Britain's interest to remain a member of. But I'm confident that we will make, because of the logic of the single currency, means that those countries need to take these steps. I'm confident that I'll be able to get a good deal for Britain. Next question. Gentleman here.
Good evening, Mr. Prime Minister. My question, sir, is what are your views on the revelations made by Edward Snowden?
Oh, sorry, yes, I didn't answer Tempura, so Snowden, yes.
Yes, so what are your views? Because when China does it, it's criticized, but when US and UK are indulging in invasion of privacy, what are your views on that?
Okay, well, we have a rule in British politics that we don't comment on intelligence and security issues, but I think that'd be rather a boring answer to your question. So let me say a little bit about it. First of all, countries, it's perfectly legitimate for countries to have and maintain intelligence and security organisations. Our job as governments, our first responsibility is public safety, is national defence, is keeping our country safe. And I think it's perfectly legitimate to have intelligence and security agencies that do just that. And when you think of the horrendous attacks like you experienced in Mumbai, or we have experienced in London and other parts of the United Kingdom, like Manchester, if we can take steps to prevent these attacks happening, if we can take steps to arrest the people who are responsible, then we should take those steps. So I'm absolutely clear it's good to have properly funded, properly organised intelligence and security services. In Britain, we do have a very good way of making sure they're governed properly. They are accountable to a committee of Parliament called the Intelligence and Security Committee that can look over their work. They operate under the law that we have passed in the United Kingdom, and their work is overseen by intelligence commissioners. So I'm satisfied we have a pretty good system for making sure these organisations act in a proper way. As for the Snowden revelations, all I would say is this. It is very damaging when you reveal lots of information about organisations that necessarily have to be secret. And you're in danger, with revelations like Snowden, you're in danger of helping the terrorists, of helping the organised criminals. Because if they find out all the ways in which they are being followed or monitored or what have you, they will take the relevant action. So, look, we shouldn't be closed-minded to the importance of accountability and the importance of making sure these organisations are governed properly. But let's not be naive and think that we suddenly live in a world where we don't need intelligence and security. We do, and in India you know that perhaps as well as anybody. Right, next question. Gentleman in the middle.
The Arab Spring, and what are your views about the international community's reaction to like the mayhem that happened in August in Syria? And how do you see international community responding in the future?
Right. Gosh, how long have we got? That's like a pol sci lecture rather than a question in terms of answering that. I'll give you my sort of straightforward headlines. I think first of all we should welcome the Arab Spring. When people and countries want to move towards greater freedom, greater rights, greater engagement, greater democracy, as democrats, whether we're Indian or British, we should welcome that. But we should do something else, which is recognise democracy is a journey, it's not an event. You don't become a democracy just because you hold one election. Democracy, it's what I call the building blocks of democracy, that sometimes matter as much or even more